Hello everybody, I hope everyone's enjoying their trip to University of Madison. This is the video that for Tuesday's notes for graphing relations using a table of values. Alright, so today what we're going to do is learn how to graph a line, but before we do that we have to start with some vocabulary. Alright, so what does it mean to be a relation? A relation is just a pairing of input values. And input values are going to be the x values and y values and output values. Oops. And output values are the y's. Okay. The domain of a relation is just the set of all the input values. And remember, all the input values, that's the x values. Okay. The range of a relation is it's the opposite of the domain. It's the set of all the output values. And again, output values are the y values. If there's any part of this video that I'm going too fast, feel free to pause it so you can keep up and write all of the words down, everything down. Alright, so for number 1 and 2, we're going to graph the relation, and then we're going to identify the domain and range. So input, those are the x values. The output, these are the y values. The relation is just the pair, so I'm going to plot the points. So my first pair is negative 4, 8, so I go left 4, up 8, which is right here. Okay. My next pair is negative 1, negative 3, so I go left 1, down 3. My next pair is 0, 3, so I just go up 6. My next pair is 3, negative 2, so I go right 3, down 2. And finally, my last pair is 7, 9, my next ordered pair, so I go right 7, all the way up to 9. Okay? So I just graphed my relation. Alright, well, to write the domain, it's a little bit tricky, but I promise you it's not too bad. Since the domain are all the x values, I start with x. I follow it by a colon. And then I follow it with a bracket. I'm going to list all of the x values from increasing order. But remember, there's no repeats. So I don't need to list numbers that are the same back to back. So I start from the smallest number, which is negative 4. Then I go to negative 1. Then I go to 0, 3, 7. And that's my domain. Now similarly, I have to do the range. Since the range is y, I'm going to do y, colon. I'm going to start with the bracket. And then again, I'm going to list them in increasing order. So I'm going to start with the smallest y value, which is negative 3. And then I'm going to increase. And again, no repeat. So I go from negative 3, negative 2, 6, 8, and 9. So again, no repeats means, for example, if negative 2 appeared twice as an output value, I wouldn't do negative 2 comma negative 2. I would just put negative 2 once. Alright, let's do another example. Now with this example, I already have the relation graphed, and you're going to actually fill out the table. So let's first label this point right here. So that would be negative 6, 7, negative 8, 6. Let's go to this point right here, which is negative 2, 0. Let's move down to this point right here, which is 0, negative 4. Let's move up to this point right here, which is 4, 7, 4, 7. Oh, sorry, 4, 8, my bad. And lastly, this point right here, that is 7, negative 2. Alright, let's go ahead and list the domain. Remember, my domain are my x values, so I'm going to start with x, and the colon, and then I'm going to start with the set. That's how I represent it with brackets. Remember, I have to list the x values in increasing order with no repeats. So my smallest x value is going to be negative 8, then it's negative 2, 0, 4, 7. Then I'm going to write my range. Range is y, so I do y colon in the brackets. I'm going to start with the smallest number, which is negative 4. Then I'm going to move to negative 2, 0, 6, and 8. And that is my domain and range of that relation. Alright, so then we're going to move on to what it means to be a function. A function is a relation. Again, remember, a relation is just a pairing of input and output values, so pairs of x and y's, that passes the vertical line test by not having any points directly above each other. So to pass the vertical line test, you cannot have any points that are directly above each other. Let's look at these two examples that we've already have done. Okay? So look at this relation. I don't have any points above or below this point. Same thing with this. Same thing with this point, as well as this and that. Okay? So this relation would be considered a function because it passes the vertical line test, meaning it does not have any points directly above each other. Okay? If I look at this relation number 2, again, this relation will also pass the vertical line test because there's not a single point that is directly above one another. Now, for example, if I had a point right here, this relation will automatically fail the vertical line test, so it would not be a function because this point is directly above that point. So since that point didn't exist in my original relation, number 2 will be a function. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to plot this relation and just list the domain and range, and then by looking at the graph, figure out if it is a function or not. Alright, so to plot this point, negative 10, 9, I go left 10, up 9. To plot negative 7, negative 2, I go left 7, down 2. To plot negative 1, 0, I just go left 1. To plot 0, 6, I just go up 6. And lastly, to plot 7, 6, I go right 7, up 6. Okay. Let's go ahead and list my domain. Since my domain is my x values, I start with x colon and then a bracket. Again, I list them in increasing order with no repeat. So my smallest x value, my smallest input would be negative 10. Then I go to negative 7, negative 1, 0, and 7. I'm going to write my range. Range is my y value, so I'm going to start with y colon. Okay. List them in increasing order with no repeat. So my smallest number is negative 2. Then I go to 0. I'm only going to write 6 once since there's no repeats. And then I'm going to go to 9. Alright, so looking at this function, I don't see a point two points that are directly above each other. Since that's true, it passes the vertical line test, so it is a function. So yes, it is because it passes the vertical line test. Okay. And that's all the explanation I'm looking for. It's yes or no, is it a function? And yes, it is a function because it passes the vertical line test, or no, it is not a function because it fails the vertical line test.